Welcome to Fix It Fast. Today I'll be showing you how to waterproof and dustproof your Cubbies in your second or third gen Tacoma. Remove these 6 bolts with a T30 bit. Once the bolts are removed, the Cubby will pull right out. Repeat this process on the passenger side. Typically you'd have a lot better access to these bolts, but I have my drawer system in the back of the truck with all the camping gear loaded in it, and I really didn't feel like removing it just to put everything back in again. If your truck came with the 120 volt outlet, you're going to have to remove this wire harness first. You're simply going to push on this little clip here and it should release. Underneath that wire harness connector, there's another wire clip holding that in place. You just need to take a screwdriver or a plastic trim tool and work on left and right side of it, and it should come out with a little bit of finesse. I'll be using 1/2 inch split plastic wire conduit to cover these holes. Cut it long enough that it'll cover the whole hole, and then you're gonna roughly cut this in half so then you can use both halves. Originally I was gonna cut about 1/4 of the plastic off and have 3/4 of it to cover the holes, but it just didn't line up the way I wanted it to. Once you have your plastic conduit cut to the sizes you want, then you're gonna mix up the epoxy. So when you're mixing your epoxy, don't do what I'm about to do. You don't want to mix all your epoxy at once. You want to mix a little bit at a time as you go, because this stuff cures really fast and you're going to have to work very quickly to use all this before it cures. Do yourself a favor, and to prevent the epoxy from running the way it is right now where I'm putting it, you want to grab a piece of wood or something to help prop this cubby up so it's level and the epoxy is not running all over the place. You can see on this last piece of plastic that the epoxy is already setting up, and I've probably wasted about half of it. So do like I said and mix a little bit of epoxy as you go, and then usually there's a little cap you can put on the end so it doesn't dry out or run everywhere. Now that the first layer of epoxy is dry, I'm just going to use some silly putty to help close the end gaps here. I'm going to give another coat of epoxy, and then this silly putty will keep the epoxy from running into the channels. Can't really see it very well, but I'm using my other hand on the inside of that plastic conduit to keep that putty from pushing all the way through. That way I'm getting a nice tight fit. I'm going to do that to every side on every one of these. You may find that the epoxy still wants to run down the side of the opening on the end, so just make sure you're going back and pulling that epoxy back up to where you want it. As the epoxy sets up and thickens a little bit, it'll stay where you place it and won't run everywhere. Now for these holes here, I'm just going to use a little bit of blue tape and put it on the back side here inside. That way when I put the epoxy on, it's not going to just leak through. And it'll come off pretty easy. Do yourself a favor and make those pieces of tape longer than I did, because once the tape's in those tiny little cubbies, it's hard to get to unless you got tiny little hands. I'm going to put some of this 3M black weather strip adhesive all around the electrical plug here. I'm just going to fill in these little guys here too. I'm leaving this one alone because that way if any water gets in the plug it can drain out. Carefully insert the receptacle into the cubby. Then install the 4 bolts. And you're going to tighten these to snug. They don't have to be overly tight. To seal the outside of the cubby, I'm going to be running a bead of ProFlex RV sealant to help keep out the dust and the water. You can opt to put a bead around the outside of the bolt holes. I just chose not to. I didn't think it was necessary. Carefully install the cubby back into the bed of the truck, being careful not to smear the sealant everywhere. Don't forget to clip in your little harness clip and then also the wire connector. That way you have power once everything's hooked back up. Once you have it all lined up and properly seated, install your 6 bolts. And you're going to tighten these to snug. If you laid the sealant on thick, you might see a little bit of it seep out around the edges as you tighten everything down. As you can see on the driver's side, the middle bolt there have a little bit of sealant pushing through. Put your cover back on, and that's how you seal your Cubbies in your Tacoma. If you found this video helpful, please like and hit the subscribe button. Follow for future content. We'll see you on the next one.